Cape Town, South Africa. What time is it there, Melissa?
It is 6 p.m. and it's time to wine.
It's 9 a.m. and I'm drinking some tea. It's time to wine with my Starbucks cup from somewhere, I think in North Korea. So anyway, what kind of wine are you drinking there, Melissa?
I'm actually drinking a Sauvignon Blanc.
Oh, from South
And
Africa?
yeah, absolutely, definitely from South Africa. It's actually from a wine estate I was at on Sunday, Nederburg. But we're heading into summer here, so definitely Sauvignon Blanc weather.
Oh, cool. Let's talk about live broadcast and then we'll go into your work history and your tours, etc. So Time to Wine is a live broadcast that's featuring experts in wine, social media marketing, and leadership. And it's the second, fourth Monday of the month at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We now have a second broadcast, which are live interviews that are recorded on YouTube, and that is on Fridays at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That has been every other Friday. And now, starting in November, I have such a long queue that it will be every Friday. Now, also, we are going live. This is a live international broadcast that is, you are able to ask questions. You can ask us anything. We'd love to hear from you. So what we'd love for you to do is tell us hello, say that you're watching and that you are here with us. So I'd love to hear from you. Both of us would love to hear from you. And we can also ask any kind of question that you're would like to ask. I've been approved for LinkedIn Live. And we are now doing live broadcast on YouTube Live, LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live with international guests in different time zones, which is pretty interesting. I have a friend Priscilla in Australia that's going to go live. She's 16 hours ahead of me. So we're having to work out times where we're both we're both awake. And so far it's 4 p.m. and it's 8 a.m. in Australia. And so we've got that worked out. Okay, so Melissa, why don't you tell us, you're the founder of Vindigo Travel, and tell us a little bit about your background, and then we'll go into, we've got all kinds of exciting things here, the alcohol ban, COVID, all kinds of fun adventures that have started with COVID. So tell us a little bit about your work background. I know you've got an extensive international background.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you, Jessica, for having me. It's just wonderful to see you. And in fact, this is what COVID has done. It's allowed us to connect with international audiences in ways that we wouldn't have done before. And talking of time zones, I used to live in New York, which was, I think, minus 7 hours behind South Africa. And then in Sydney, which was +9 or the other way around. But in any event, my poor parents, I was working as a Vice-Consul for political and cultural affairs in New York. At the dawn of South Africa's democracy, we've now been a free country for the last 27 years. So that was a very exciting season to represent South Africa. I was a Vice-Consul for political and cultural affairs, selling South Africa. So in some ways, what I'm doing now is similar to that, but I'm doing it for my own company. But I'm passionate about South Africa, and I'm a born and bred South African. But my husband's job took us to Sydney, Australia, and I got involved actually with an American company, McGraw-Hill Educational Publishing. And I was involved as a production assistant and then on the sales side, and then came back to South Africa 14 years ago. Actually, no, I think it's 16 years ago. I don't know if you've also experienced that, but COVID has definitely thrown the issue of time out. And I can't believe it's October 2021 tomorrow. I mean, it's just crazy, isn't it? So I started Vindigo in 2008, and it's over the years grown to become a leading tour operator. It's mostly luxury inbound tour operator, but our specialization is wine tourism. But obviously, when people come to Africa, they'll come to go on safari. So we offer wine safaris, but art safaris, and of course real safaris as well. We're based in Cape Town, and I call myself the chief travel curator because our tagline is curated travel, and basically, if you curate something, you choose from what you know is out there, and you bring it all together in a beautiful, bespoke, once-off exhibition, and in this case, somebody's holiday. So all of our tours that we curate are private tours, and we just love introducing our clients to the winemakers, to get behind the scenes, discovering the hidden gems, and that's what we really want to create memorable and authentic travel experiences for our clients.
Oh, it sounds just wonderful. And I noticed too, my mic wasn't on. So hopefully, the first part here where we talked about your work history was recorded, but I think it has because when I was testing, I could see that the mic was working. So we'll talk about that a little. We'll talk about that a little bit more extensively too. So, okay. So we know with because of all of our friends that we know on social media, there's been some extreme happenings in South Africa dealing with COVID. So, do you want to talk a little bit about the alcohol ban and what's happened now with that? There were a lot of, there was a big transition with that, and there were a lot of entrepreneurs in the background doing some very innovative things in South Africa because of the alcohol ban. So, would you like to? And I know that currently that's not going on, but would you like to talk about sort of the transition there, and then we'll talk a little bit more about your tours.
Okay, sure.
And I can hear you better now that I have my mic plugged in. That's
okay. Well, thankfully, there is no prohibition, and alcohol is available in South Africa. I must say it was quite a challenge for a lot of people in the first very hard lockdown that we had in March last year, when COVID first really began to get serious, and we realized we were dealing with a global pandemic. And originally, I remember my son had challenged me. He said, "Mom, I bet you can't drink, for not 3 weeks." And so I didn't drink for 3 weeks just to prove that I couldn't. And then our president extended the restriction by another 2 weeks. And I thought, okay, I can do this. But funnily enough, there was a lot of bootlegging happening. And I think there was also very much a sense that a lot of the wine estates were providing employment, and if they were not allowed to sell their product, jobs were going to be lost. And it was also at the time when the harvest was coming off. So there was a special dispensation to allow the wine estates to have their workers help bring in the harvest. Because in South Africa, the harvest season is from January to April. And so this was right in the middle of the harvest. One thing it's really done is it's connected individuals directly to the wine estates. So in a way, it's kind of cut out the middlemen, so to speak. And I mean, there were people, some of the wine farmers, after the prohibition was lifted, were actually personally delivering the wine, because what you could also do is you could place orders, but you couldn't necessarily have the wine delivered. And then after the prohibition or the restrictions were lifted, there was very much a sense of thank you for supporting us in this season. And yeah, I think one thing COVID's done is it's spawned a huge amount of creativity and new ways of doing things around business and that kind of thing. Yeah.
So, what was the impetus? So, I know in different countries there are different things going on. What was the impetus for the prohibition or the alcohol ban?
Well, unfortunately, as was experienced all over the world, that there was a sense that the hospitals would be not be able to cope, especially the ICUs. And unfortunately, in South Africa, especially on weekends, we have a situation where people don't necessarily always drink responsibly. So it was one very effective way to just ensure that beds that were unnecessarily would be kept free and so nobody was landing up in ICU because of being stabbed or through domestic violence incidents with alcohol. So that was definitely also behind the thinking. Yeah.
And then the drinking and driving too wasn't that part of it?
Yeah. I mean, drinking and driving is an issue everywhere, I think. And yeah, I mean, we also had, as we had all over the world, we had curfews. In fact, our president is having a family meeting tonight, President Cyril Ramaphosa, and where he gets to speak to the nation at 8 a.m. tonight. And there's very much on Twitter, I see it's trending that we'll hopefully move to level 1. So we slowly, as we're going into summer, as our vaccination rate is picking up, as we've passed through the third wave, we are looking to lift the restrictions because unfortunately so many jobs have been lost and we really, really need to get the economy going again.
Yes, so in the history of South Africa, have you had a prohibition? Has anything like this happened prior to COVID that you can recall?
Not that I can remember.
Not that you can remember. In my lifetime, nothing like that's happened either. So it was really quite interesting. So let's talk a little bit about your tours. So I know, who is your target audience? So where are most of your people coming from? I know things have changed and there were some issues in South Africa with local travel, local tourism being, and maybe you can talk a little bit about that. The international scene wasn't going very well. So then there was somewhat of an impetus of travel within the country. And then,
I think there's been a trend all over the world, actually, that with international borders closed, that people have had to discover their own backyards, and that hasn't been a bad thing, actually. But it's quite been quite a challenge if one's in luxury travel or if one is geared towards the international market and making that pivot, to use a the verb of COVID times, to pivot to local luxury. Although I must say, because we also do safaris, a lot of the safaris have been offering fantastic specials at never to be seen again prices for locals. So we've actually been very fortunate that we picked up quite a lot of local business on that score. But South Africa is open to international travelers. It's just been more a concern that when they get back to their own countries, their source countries, they have to quarantine. And in fact, we're hoping to get off the red list with the UK, hopefully in the next 2 weeks. Um, yeah, we've actually got quite a strong domestic leisure market, and I was hearing some statistics that some of the hotels are starting to have really decent occupancy levels. And one of the good things about also just focusing on the local market is that we've really got all our protocols in place in terms of COVID protocols, in terms of sanitization, in terms of mask wearing, because we really, really want our international clients to feel safe when they visit South Africa. And so I think the local tourism industry has really gone out of its way to ensure that the protocols are in place and that we've been practicing, so to speak, on locals. And we're really, really starting to see quite a few green shoots, and I'm even very excited to say I'm starting to get some international inquiries and new clients. In fact, I've got one family who's actually coming from France, and actually it's a blessing and the silver lining of COVID, because their son was meant to go to Australia to do a work experience or learn English, and Australia was closed. So he landed up coming to South Africa, and as a result, the whole family is now coming to spend some time in the Cape and also go on safari in December. So that's been a silver lining.
what would you say some of the other silver linings have been? I know that I have seen quite a few. There's been quite a shift going on here. So what would you say that you have seen happening with that?
I think we will not take travel for granted. We used to think of travel as a given, and now I think we regard it as a gift. And I think that's not a bad thing. I think in terms of sustainability, um, just becoming more conscious as we travel, also really appreciating the opportunity to get together with family, with friends. Um, so I think also even the notion of getting together and having a meal in a restaurant or in a home, we don't take that for granted anymore. I think in a way we've sort of gone back to basics of what's really, really important. And I know there've been a lot of challenges as well for people in terms of mental health, but I think it's also spawned a realization of how important exercise is. In fact, I think it's Paris. In Paris, it's International Couture Week or something, and that's been one of the trends coming out. And I know, Jessica, we've spoken in the past about how you've been running and I've been running, and we really kind of are being mindful of things that we can do, which actually are in the open air, which are free, and which are the solace of nature. So yeah.
I think on this side, I saw a big shift toward family. So there were a lot of people working at home, a lot of dads posting their children on LinkedIn while they're working with 1-year-old in the background banging things. There were a lot of people discussing they'd been driving 2 hours to work or commuting an hour and a half to work, and the loss of time with family. And so there were lots of people discussing to work and having available. There'll be a big shift there from commercialism to back to family. I also, during this period, I started meditating twice a day, and then I just knew everything was going to be okay during this process. But I started this international broadcast, which has been really wonderful in terms of us all having a voice to be able to speak together. So I think that this is a great way to, it's kind of like a greeting card for the world here, that we're all interacting together. And it's a great way to have conversations about what's happening in each of our countries. And so I've sat here working on this the whole time. So why don't you tell us about the updates on the vaccines? What's happening?
Yeah, so look, we are a country of 60 million people, and I believe that we have got 17 million people vaccinated. So it's been quite a slow rollout, but it's starting to gather pace. And specifically amongst the youth, they are very, very keen to get vaccinated. So there, for example, there's an initiative by the government saying to jol and jab. So to jol is a South African word for to have a party. So if you want to jol, if you want to have a party, then you've got to get the jab. And also, for example, we've got our municipal elections coming up on the 1st of November, our local government elections. And my understanding as well is that there will be vaccination booths next to where you go and vote. So it's also a question of bringing the vaccinations to more rural areas. We've got Johnson & Johnson. I've been double vaxxed with Pfizer. We're not looking at booster shots at this point, but I think there's very much a sense that we need to get our vaccination rate up in order to avert a fourth wave. And that's what we're really trying now to make sure we don't get that fourth wave in November.
Okay, and then I think here we're back in masks. So we were out of mask for 2 months, and I was thinking, okay, this seems a little bit too good to be true. We're able to go to concerts. We're able to have a great time. We're not wearing masks. Then suddenly the masks were back on, and the concerts were canceled, and so everything kind of went back to lockdown there. But I have been to 2 or 3 events where it was required to bring your vaccine, your card saying that you're vaccinated, and they stamp it, and then they let you in once they see that you're vaccinated. And then, so we still have a large population that's vaccinated, and we still have a population that's not vaccinated. So a lot of those people are not able to attend events right now. So we've got some things like that happening. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit. So back with COVID and back with the alcohol ban, South Africa has been heavily involved in non-alcoholic wines and de-alcoholic pineapple wine and then but fancy wines that are no alcohol. So I would imagine that some of this had to do with, well, there are a lot of trends in the wine industry that are dealing with vegan wines and low calorie wines and having organic wines available and things like that. So do you want to talk about the low alcohol wines in South Africa? Because they look very, from what I was seeing on Twitter, very, very Lovely looking, fantastic packaging, very hip and trendy. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Look, there's a lot of innovation happening. In fact, I had my first wine in a can the other day, which was quite an experience, and which I can think if you are going on a picnic, why not? But I mean, I know there is amongst young people as well a trend not to drink, and so we have a lot of non-alcoholic beer as well. And in fact, sales went through the roof for all of that during lockdown. Um, Look, not we don't have a large wine drinking population in South Africa. Actually, I think in terms of the world, I think it's 7 liters per person a year or something. I mean, we really, it's there's more preference for beer, or even though our wines are ranked top in the world, and we really can hold our head up high. I just saw recently, you might have seen that, Jessica, they voted the top 50 vineyards in the world. And one of the favorite places that I love taking my clients to is Creation Wines, which is in the Heaven and Earth Valley near Hermanus. They were voted in the top 10. And then Delagraf, which is a lovely, spectacular estate as well in Stellenbosch, between Stellenbosch and Franschhoek. They came in at number 30. So, I mean, we've got world-class wineries. Yeah, you can see I'm quite uncomfortable talking about de-alcoholized wine because it feels like an oxymoron to me,
And then also prior to your prohibition, from my memory, you had an issue with water, which was causing quite a problem with with irrigation and no water in the hotel. You want to talk about that really quick? We kind of brushed over that because we had this big pandemic.
No, but that is not an issue at all. In fact, our dams in Cape Town are over 100%. So we really are so blessed. Everything is so green. We had amazing snowfalls actually this winter, and then the snow melts in the mountains and fills up all the dams. So water is not an issue at all. And in fact, I believe that they had a very, very good harvest this year. And yeah, it's South Africans, one thing about us is we're very resilient. And there's an expression, it's an Afrikaans expression. It says a boer maak 'n plan, which means a farmer makes a plan. And we somehow, in fact, I think Cape Town's now been cited as one of the top cities in the world in terms of actually showing other cities how to deal with water crises. So they say, don't waste a good crisis. And so, I mean, the water is not an issue at all.
Okay, so we're through the water. How many? While we were in the middle of COVID, you had the water crisis. Where we are, we had COVID. Then we had extreme fire evacuations with everyone's houses burning down. So that it's not even funny. The whole city,
biblical proportions in some.
Well, the whole city was covered in smoke, and I thought, okay, we've got COVID. Oh, great. Now we can't breathe. So that's all. Let's see if this is actually the apocalypse happening, because it was actually quite frightening. So, okay, with your international travel, let's talk about some culture shock so let's say you're dealing with a lot of international people in South Africa. So I would imagine, so you have some with vocabulary, I think you've mentioned to me.
Yes.
And then there's probably, so let's talk about international travelers in South Africa, culture shock. Or you traveling to other places, culture shock?
Well, one thing, I think why I love what I do is that I really see the value of travel in terms of education. And, if you've been to a place, you're never going to look at a map or think of a person in the same way when you hear, Russia or South Africa, and so I think, I think a lot of people, when they first come to South Africa and have never traveled to Africa, and specifically when they arrive in Cape Town, there's almost a sense of disappointment that it's not as African as they thought. It's too European, or we've got a castle which dates from 1682 or before, actually. It's there's so many layers of our history as well, and Cape Town in particular is a very cosmopolitan city. It's had the original the Khoi and the San people, but then it had the Dutch settlers, and then there were French, there were English. So there are layers and layers of history, and that's what I love about introducing our clients to the different foods, because I think food shows you, all the different influences. And so, for example, the Dutch East India Company, they brought over slaves from Malaysia. So we have Cape Malay cooking, which is actually very spicy and leaning on those spices that would have come from those areas in the world. Culture shock. Look, we've got 11 official languages in South Africa.
Oh, wow.
Although a lot of people speak English, especially in the tourism and hospitality industry, English, and then Afrikaans, which is derived from Dutch, specifically in the Cape. But I mean, you can, as an international tourist, you can get around perfectly well. I mean, I remember traveling in Moscow in Russia, and I couldn't speak Russian. My husband was learning Russian at the time. And I realized that actually the best thing to do was to go to the international hotel, the Hilton or whatever it was, and then ask them to arrange, tickets to go to the Bolshoi or something. So, I mean, but culture shock, you've got to get your head around that the seasons are different. I think for a lot of people that they can't fathom, why are you on a beach eating watermelon on Christmas Day? That's, sort of working one's way around that. I think in some ways we've become, with a global world. I mean, you can go to a shopping mall in downtown Johannesburg or Cape Town, and you could be anywhere in the world. You'll see Zara, you'll see McDonald's. So in some ways, you could be anywhere. But I think what makes South Africa special is really the people, the warmth of the people. We're so thrilled when people come and visit us. I mean, I remember, I did grow up in apartheid South Africa, and there were obviously there were sanctions, and a lot of Americans didn't travel to South Africa. But now we're just so excited if we hear foreign accents, and a lot of students actually come and study at the University of Cape Town or University of Stellenbosch. And I think as they fall in love with the country, they then tell their families and their friends, and also the whole millennial generation. It's all about Instagram, and South Africa is an incredibly visual country. So, you can get the most extraordinary shots. You can, there's just so much to do here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I just can't imagine. I'd love to visit. I've been to Brazil on Christmas Day, which is very strange because I think when one year it was so hot and so humid, I think we had to go to the mall because it was air conditioned. But we're generally at the beach, and so it's quite a interesting juxtaposition because it's really cold and rainy here. Then I'm in the southern hemisphere, and we're in the middle of the beaches, and it's kind of nice when it's cold and rainy here. But then I'm also very white. I don't have any kind of a tan, or I have trouble finding, bathing suits or all kinds of things. So, all right. So, we've got culture shock, things to see and do in South Africa. And we're at about 29 minutes. So do you want to talk a little bit about, you're an entrepreneur. You switched from working for big companies to starting your own business. Do you want to talk about tips for entrepreneurs, or what did you one of the first things you said to me was you're an entrepreneur, but tips for successful entrepreneurs, or tips for moving forward, or anything like that that you'd like to bring in?
I think the expression I use originally is I was a mompreneur. So a mother primarily. My kids are now 23 and 21. So in a way, they're sort of officially adults, although they're not off the payroll. but I think you can't put a price on flexibility, especially as a working mother. And I think in a way what COVID has done has shown companies that everyone can work from home, and it is possible. So I think it's actually really created this incredible opportunity for specifically working mothers. Although fathers have, it's also worked for them. Um, I feel very privileged because I was selected to do a course through the city of Cape Town, focusing on women in business, and it's really been an opportunity to meet a lot of other female entrepreneurs. And one of the most important things is actually getting the balance, because as an entrepreneur, you're always hustling, especially if you're growing your business and you're in those stages. So self-care is absolutely essential, because if you're not um, looking after yourself, then it's very difficult to be leading and motivating other people. And I also think the new world that we're moving into, you're not going to have that many traditional jobs, and you're going to have to create your own opportunities, and especially for young people. The work, to be an entrepreneur, not unfortunately not everyone is an entrepreneur, because you have to be prepared to take risks. And I mean, I have worked in government and I've worked in corporate, but I do enjoy the creativity, the especially when I'm putting together and these trips and these tours, because every single one is different. And I think it's quite hard to. It's actually quite nice being the boss. I find it would be quite hard to have to go and report to someone. And I also find it's lovely to collaborate, and especially with women, finding, one of the women I met on the course has her own bigger transport company. And now I've been able to, if I had a big tour to Constantia, I was able to work with her company. And that's really fulfilling, and lovely to see new collaborations coming out.
What I've
So,
noticed too, when I started doing this broadcasting and talking to a variety of different people, is that most of the people that are in the wine industry are entrepreneurs. Quite often, they're doing a variety of different things. I have had, prior to COVID, all kinds of people asking me to do tours. So I was doing tours for a big university, and people were watching that on social media. And so what happened was, what I found about wine is there's all kinds of people. If we're open to, which we are open to all kinds of people, there are people that have no knowledge about wine that would still love to go sit at a winery and taste wine. I have college students that like to do that. I have executives that would like to do that. I have um, companies that are interested in doing things like that. So, and then other universities have asked me, could I take students, for example, Oregon State University, as well as Washington State University, could I take students to South Africa? So I think there is still, that's been on hold, but there's still a big possibility. And then I'm in a untapped wine market, but there's possibility of doing things both ways. Oregon wine, South African wine. The Germans would like people to come to, to do wine. So I think we have
the
opportunities to do
Italians,
all
the
kinds of
French.
things. So yes, so
Look, wine is an international language, but I remember being at a conference on the business of food and wine tourism, and the head of the Napa Valley was the guest speaker, and he was talking about the four pillars of wine tourism. There's the wine, there's food, there's culture, and there's wellness. And so you don't have to necessarily even drink wine to visit a wine estate. Often they're in the most beautiful, beautiful setting and scenery. They've got fabulous gardens. They've got sculptures or art galleries. Some of them are destination wineries. You can stay, you can play, you can go to the spa, you can do mountain biking. We really are spoiled for choice, and that's why I think one of my passions really is wine tourism, especially also post-COVID travel. I mean, it's just very safe to be out in nature, and you can have fabulous, memorable days.
I think so too. And I just want to ask real quick. So if you are watching this, there's going to be this will actually record now and it's going live and then it will record and there'll be a replay. Please feel free to ask questions, comment, let us know that you're watching or watching later. We'd love to hear from you, and you can ask questions on YouTube. You can ask questions on LinkedIn as well as on Facebook. And we will be answering there, and send us a like, send us some love, or send us a high five to let us know that you're watching. And real quickly, Melissa, tell us, we have on the bottom of the screen is your Twitter handle and your Instagram handle. How else if someone is interested in your tours, how do they find you?
I think our web page has all the information. It's www.vindigotravel.com. So like the color indigo with a V for Vino in front, www.vindigotravel.com. And we have a contact us page there. And people are very welcome to email me directly. It's Melissa, MELISSA, @vindigotravel.com. We are on TripAdvisor under Vindigo Travel. We'd love to hear. We're very happy as well to do a complimentary Zoom consultation for people who are interested in coming to South Africa, because all of our tours, as I said, we really want to understand what the client's interests are, and then we tailor them accordingly and work with you.
Off the top of your head here, do you know the exchange rate between the United States and South Africa?
I think today it was 15 Rand 15 to the dollar. So it's actually very much in your favor when you travel. You'd probably pay about $2 for a coffee here. I don't know what you'd pay. I mean, the whole Starbucks, you can look and see.
Starbucks is you can pay $7 for a coffee, $6, things like that. So $2 for a coffee.
That was a bad example. Our wine is incredibly inexpensive for the quality that you're getting. When I've taken around American winemakers, and they cannot get over how fabulous our wine is, and they can't believe the price given the quality.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Okay, so we're at 37 minutes, so we'll go ahead and stop, and I will end the broadcast, and I will play our closing here. So let's tell Melissa from South Africa. I just always love talking to you. I've had fun talking to you every time I talk to you, and I'm sure, I tend to invent things. I don't know if you've noticed. So the next thing, we'll be on Clubhouse and doing a Instagram Live, or something new will happen because I sit here behind the scenes and do or TikTok. we'll figure it out. In my free time, without any socialization, I do a lot of innovation, which has been particularly nice during this. So I'm going to hit this, and then we'll hit our closing. And we're ready to go. So thanks so much, Jessica, for talking from Cape Town, and I'll see you in just a minute.
Thank you. Cool.